Parm Saran is a licensed, registered nurse with nearly 30 years of experience. She specializes in mental health and is an advocate for removing the stigma around mental illness. She is a certified therapist, coach, and motivational speaker. She is a holistic nursepreneur helping thousands with her online program, Pain to Purpose. She believes in creating your own destiny and empowering yourself, helping people live life by design and not by default. She has a YouTube channel where she encourages people to choose faith over fear and speak out against bullying, stigma, abuse, and violence. Her best-selling book, Own Your Life, Create As You Go, has inspired many to live life to its fullest potential. Parm is a wife and a mother, and her everyday message, especially to women, is do it. Because your kids deserve a mother they can brag about. She believes you can change your story to change your life and inspires people to do the same. Parm's motive is to help people find their inner power and be the person they are meant to be. Please welcome a voice of change, Parm Saran, and get ready for her show, Grow Your Greatness.
Hello everyone, Sat Shri Akal, Namaste, good evening, good morning. Hope you are doing great wherever you are. Welcome to the show Grow Your Greatness. Today's episode is a very special episode because we have a very special guest. We have Martin with us. Martin is not only a caring, compassionate human being, but he is a person who went from radio host to peer support working, and he's going to share his journey of going through anxiety and overcoming it. So let's welcome Martin on our show. Okay, welcome Martin. Welcome to Grow Your Greatness.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
That's great. Okay, Martin, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'm very curious to know your journey from a radio host to peer support worker. How did that happen?
Well, I always joke and say there's maybe one of us in the world has actually been a radio personality turned peer support worker. But,
Wow.
for the longest time, radio was something I had a genuine interest in. I used to pretend to do radio shows in the basement when I was growing up with my cassette tapes and all that. I used to cue them up and everything. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So, yeah, basically, 90s, there was an opening at one of the local community radio stations where I lived. And I thought, I'm just going to go along and see what happens. One thing led to the other. And before you knew it, I actually had my own radio show Saturday afternoons. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It escapes me, but Saturday Afternoon Oldies or something. Pretty generic title. But it was just a lot of fun to do that. And I thought, yeah, I really like this. And people said, you're fantastic at this. You should make a career of it. So I thought, all right. After university, I thought about it, went to school for radio and got my radio broadcasting diploma. But towards the end of it, unfortunately, my mental health started to take a turn. Yeah, downward, I guess you can say. And I thought, you know what? I don't think I can do this. I was just intense anxiety. It was just, the fear of not making it. And of course, being in the media field, there's like a cutthroat industry. So you don't know, sometimes one week to the next, if you can find the job, retain a job, are they going to let you go? And I thought, I don't want to be a part of that. And unfortunately, the radio station I was at, still doing some volunteer stuff while I was with the college, there were things there that happened, and I went, okay, this isn't going to work for me. And my mental health just took a huge decline to the point where I'm like, I can't do this. And I had to, get out of the industry. I missed it, but for my own mental health, I had to do that. That's how my radio career ended, unfortunately. I had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, I'm glad I have the diploma, a lot of good times, but a lot of anxious times. And to make a long story short, I hit, rock bottom in 2007 after that, at which point I'm like, okay, something's really wrong to get help with this. So my journey to recovery started there in 2007. I'll tell you more about that if you like.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically after that, I went to my doctors and said, you know what? I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating right. I'm just anxious about everything. I'm worried about, everything from even the sun coming up the next day. Like that actually was a valid fear. Is the sun going to come up? I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was real.
Mhm.
And said, okay, well, let's start you on a form of medication and let's try you with some cognitive behavioral therapy. At the
Mhm.
time, I'm like, I'll do whatever. I want to get out of this funk that I'm in.
Yeah.
And, after a short time, the medication started working. The CBT that I was doing was amazing.
Mhm.
Learning more about how negative and hard on myself that I was,
Yeah.
the thoughts that I would have and the sayings I would use to myself. I'm stupid. I'm a loser. I'm never going to be able to do anything. Not
Mhm.
realizing how damaging that can be.
Yeah.
And over time, I really worked to better myself, and I became more confident. I
Mhm.
went back to school to become a community support worker
Mhm.
slash peer support worker,
Mhm.
and things kind of took off from there.
Mhm.
Actually, prior to that, I did do another career assessment at one of those places. And, after answering 180 questions or whatever it was, it came through and said, you'd be best suited to be a radio personality. And I was like, okay, well, I've
Aw.
been there, I've done that. But number two was community support worker. And I
Mhm.
was like, what's that? And kind of explored that role a little bit and
Mhm.
helping others. And I was like, what, I can do that. Probably
Mhm.
should have put this before the actual part we were talking about before, but that's what editing's for.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was just that journey of learning more. And after school, schooling was done. I started applying to different roles and didn't hear anything. And this
Mhm.
one in particular said, please mail us your resume. And I was like, okay, we'll send that in. It was to work at a drop-in center supporting those with mental health issues.
Mhm.
And yeah, I got an email like 2 weeks later saying, "Yeah, we received your resume. Would like to meet with you." And of course, I had a mixture of, "Oh my God, this is nerve wracking," to, "Wow, let's see where this goes." And
Mhm.
went in for the interview. The interview went really, really well. They said the next part of the selection process is to come in and do one of the drop-in shifts, is to shadow somebody, see how you interact with the clientele that's there.
Mhm.
I did that, and I was offered the job as peer support worker, and that was back in 2010. And
Wow.
flash forward 2013, 2023, in a different role, but still doing peer support, and I really, really enjoy it.
That's awesome. That's amazing, Martin. And I'm just curious, when you said you hit rock bottom, right? Before that, and we all know that the anxiety usually happens when we're thinking too much into the future. It's about our thoughts, it's about our thinking level. Do you think that's what was happening at that time? Were you worried all the time about the future and thinking a lot about it?
Do you know what? Absolutely. I had some, friends and family that would say, you got to get going with your life. You're X
Mm,
amount of years old. There's going to be contributing to your retirement. You need to start, building it up and credit.
mhm,
And of course, telling that to somebody with anxiety just makes them feel even worse. So there was a little bit of, pressure that way. But
mm,
yeah, there was a lot of that because, some of my friends were well established and they'd been working for 5 years at a place. And
mm.
here I am in my late 20s and I haven't really got going yet. So
Mm.
yeah, there was a lot of worry about the future for sure.
You're comparing yourself too with
Yeah.
others, right? Yeah.
And back then it was a normal thing to do, but I've learned that,
Mhm.
you don't do that. Don't compare yourself to others. Everybody takes a different road in life.
Of
So
course.
yeah,
Yeah, and there is no set age to do something, right? There is no. I know this is like very much a social taboo, I would say,
yes,
and people have expectations. Even our own parents have expectations. Okay, you're 25, you should be set in a job. You're 30, you should be married. You're 40, you should have two kids, right? All that those things, and that's what add on to the anxiety for people.
absolutely. The social norms. I think, no, maybe not quite as prevalent today, but
Mhm.
even about 10 years ago, exactly what you said. By this age, you should be doing this. By this age, by mid 40s, you should have a house with the white picket fence, the two dogs and kids, and not everybody, and not everybody follows that. It's a
No.
different world than it was, 10, even 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you don't have to follow, right? That's your life, and you are the pilot, and you need to steer it the way you want to, right?
Absolutely. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how did you do radio when you were anxious and you had like this undiagnosed anxiety disorder? And I got asked that recently, actually. My answer to that is I just did it, for that
Mm.
30 seconds or a minute, whatever it might be, when you were on air, talking to the microphone, looking at the computer screen or the script in front of you, you could zone out and you'd forget about
Yes.
your anxiety. You were so focused on getting things right.
Mm.
And as soon as the microphone was off, the worries would come back again. Was that okay?
Mm.
Did I screw that up? I used to record a lot of my shows and listen to them and go, that was good. Nah, that wasn't so good. That was awful. But yet other people would hear it and go, that was fantastic. That was great. It's just a different perspective
Oh, you're worrying
that
about
people
it.
might have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you said it so right. So you said whenever you were in front of the microphone, you zoned out. That means you were focusing on that very moment. You were
Absolutely.
living in that very moment. And I think that is the key to get rid of anxiety, not worrying about the past or the future, just living in the very present moment, right?
Absolutely. They say if you live in the past, it can be a sign of depression. Living in the
Mhm.
future or thinking about the future can be a sign of anxiety, and try
Yes.
to remain in the present. And that's what I'm
Mhm.
still trying to do. I mean, sometimes in the role I'm in now, that can be tough, with
Oh, yes.
the phone going off, or you get an email, text, or a crisis or whatever that you have to deal with right there and then. And you still have the fear of, am I doing a good job? Am I doing the right thing? And then
Mhm.
you replace that with, well, you've been doing this for almost 13 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, you've grown a lot along the way. You
Mhm.
do get support when you need it. So, it's kind of like that old cliche, well, you must be doing something right, to be in this role that long and
Right.
helping others. And it's interesting. I just met with a client who, we really hit it off on that personal experience level about
Mhm.
anxiety and kind of being on autopilot and just not really living life, but enduring it. And
Mhm.
we're both at, I'd say, similar stages in recovery where, you can reflect and go, yes, I felt that way. I know how you feel.
Hmm.
And I think that's a huge thing about being a peer support worker is connecting with somebody on that one-to-one basis and that one-to-one level where it's like, yes, this person gets me.
Hmm.
This is somebody, with a PhD trying to use me as a case study and not understanding what I've actually been through, just using
Hmm.
coming from that medical model approach rather than the recovery model. So
Hmm.
yeah, just to segue into to peer support. That's one of the things I really, really enjoy for the most part
Yeah.
is relating to clients on that one-to-one level.
Yes, yes. I always feel like that you are in a better shape to support someone if you have been through that, right? If you have that lived experience, you know what it feels like, you know how to get out of it, you are better able to support them instead of someone who has just read the books.
Absolutely. And I say that a lot too. It's one thing to read it out of a book or to learn it, but it's quite another to have experienced it firsthand.
Mhm.
And not discrediting people who, just had the book smarts. I mean, that's great. I do have the education piece as well, plus that firsthand experience.
Yes.
And that is such a huge role that becoming more and more recognized
Mm.
as a form of therapy that works. Somebody
Mm.
who says, yes, I've been there. Yes, I've been able to recover. And I believe that you can too. And
Mm.
really working with them. Peer support is slowly towards their recovery goal is huge. And it's motivating for me and it makes me feel good, especially
Yeah.
when someone says, wow, you actually get me. You actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I recall one time when I was working in the inpatient unit at a hospital, and they
Mm.
told me, you know what, go see client in room 8B or whatever it was. We can't make any sense of her. We don't know what's going on. She won't even talk to us. Within 2 or 3 minutes, I was talking to her and
Mm.
treating her like she was a person and not just a file number or a client number, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And she told me, and I'll never forget it, she said, I've been here 3 or 4 days. You're the first person that's actually talked to me like I'm a real person and not just a number. And I remember having a great chat with her going back into the station there. And one of the workers said, "Oh, so how did you make out with, the client?" I went, "We had a great chat." And then literally their jaws dropped, like, "How did you do that?" I went,
Yeah.
"That's one of the reasons why I feel peer support is really, really it's a great tool to have."
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And connecting to someone at a emotional and mental level is an awesome level to be real with that person, right?
It's great. And for someone to say, "Wow, you actually get me and you actually understand what I'm going through. You've, walked in my shoes." Well, not
Uh-huh.
literally, of course, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you've yeah, you've
Yeah,
been
you have
down
been
there
through,
too.
yeah. So talking about the peer support, what is out there for peer support workers? If someone is living with anxiety or depression or any physical or mental health challenges, they would like to become a peer support, what should they do?
You know what? One of the things about peer support is you don't have to have, formal training. It's great that you do. Like if you have a college university degree, that's awesome. But peer
Mhm.
support can even start by you visiting a friend who is really down that day,
Yeah.
saying, "Let's go to a local coffee place, let's grab a coffee, let's just walk in the park and let's just talk and
Mm.
see what's going on," and just opening up that way and actually, hearing and listening to the person. Sometimes they just want to vent, maybe they're just having a rough day, but,
Yeah.
just being there for that person, that friend, I think is a great way to start, and sometimes that friend can support you in your time of need, and that's how peer support can work.
Mhm.
They might say, "Wow, I had a similar incident a few years ago, and this is
Mhm.
what I did," and you guys
Mhm.
can support one another that way.
Mhm.
Conversely, volunteering, maybe getting in contact with a local mental health agency or drop in program, whatever it might be, and just looking at what volunteer options are available. If you're a
Mm.
student, looking at student placements, not being afraid to reach out and say, "Yeah, I really want to become a peer support worker, but need some experience. Is there
Yeah.
anything that I can do?" Getting to know someone who is a peer support worker like myself and say,
Mhm.
"Can I talk to you for 10 minutes? Just getting
Mhm.
to know more about your role and what you did." There's programs out there like peer accreditation. If
Mhm.
you go online and search for that, you can become accredited. There's community support worker diplomas you can get.
Just being an ear for someone, right, to listen to people. I think that is the most important thing, that if someone feels like they have been heard, there is automatically a connection built up. And you said it so right, just going to a friend and talking to them, like, I feel like in life we all are peer support workers for one
Yes.
another, even for family, for friends, for kids, for parents. We are peer support workers, whether we have a training or not.
Just learning from your own recovery. You said perfectly, being that ear for somebody.
I have one last question. What would be your message to youngsters or anyone out there who are going through anxiety or living with anxiety?
Honestly, I would say don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to get help. If something's wrong, if you're having like racing thoughts or you're not sleeping right, or you're just really on edge and worried and you don't know why,
Mhm.
don't be afraid to reach out. Go to your family doctor, contact a mental health agency,
Mhm.
reach out to a friend, reach out to whoever it might be and say, "You know what? I'm really not feeling well and I don't know why." Because
Mhm.
life's too short to be, suffering in silence or thinking that it'll just pass or I'll be able to handle it. Get on your path to recovery sooner rather than later. There's no
Mhm.
shame in asking for help. There's probably that stigma that's still there, especially for males. Like, I don't want to reach out because I'm seen as weak or I'm not macho or whatever phrase you want to use. And
Yeah.
that's false. Sometimes we need a little bit of help and don't be afraid to reach out. It took
Yeah.
me a while to do it, but I'm so glad that I did.
That's awesome. And you're so right. I always say that having any mental health illness or mental health condition isn't a crime. You don't have to hide it. So get out there and seek help. So, right, life is too short to be miserable.
And I know it's a cliche. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But I mean, you know what? Hey, I managed to do, radio for a short time with anxiety. And I look back and I go, yeah, it was one of my proudest achievements to be able to do that. And yeah, I mean, 10, 12 years on, I still have the radio voice. It's probably never going to leave. So
You do.
yeah. And further proof, I'm talking into a broadcast microphone right now. So it's and you know what? It's fun. I still manage to do it from time to time just to keep my skills up, and I really enjoy it.
And you did the introduction for my show.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're like, this guy sounds familiar, there you go.
That is the voice. That's
That's
what
the
is the
voice.
voice.
Yeah, you can put a face to a name or a name to a face.
Yes. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. It was great having you here. And I congratulate you on your success of your journey to recovery. And I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you so much, Parm, for having me. Always a pleasure, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Thank you.
Take care.
Martin. You too.